Reverend Ben Stockton. Welcome, welcome,
Good
welcome.
morning. Good morning. So happy to be here with you today. I love this commute. I had to come all the way from my living room back to the bedroom. But
Wonderful.
it's a beautiful day. I almost wish I were out on the road today. It's so beautiful outside. Well, it's the December 13th for those of you watching at a later time. So the first thing I need to acknowledge is that it's my mother's birthday. And even though she's no longer with us to celebrate, I still want to acknowledge that and just keep her in my heart always. And now
Same a person.
yes, I always look forward to this time of year because here in the Northern Hemisphere we are nearing the shortest hours of daylight days, and soon we will get to start noticing the lengthening daylight hours. The flip side of that is I usually get depressed around June 21st when I realize we're headed in the other direction. So we are looking forward to more daylight. We are looking forward to more light. We are looking forward to more enlightenment. And now, since the basic tenets of the Christian religion were established here in the Northern Hemisphere, the early leaders of the church grasped that there were other ceremonies going on around this time of year as pagan peoples and, shall we say, less enlightened, well, not less enlightened, but actually just people that didn't know about Christianity, were also realizing that the days were about to start getting longer and that there was this rebirth, this renewal of life in their daily lives, that they knew that yes, they were going to be able to plant their crops again and grow and prosper and have a more functional, prosperous life. So naturally, the message of the baby Jesus in the Christian faith is one of renewal. It's one of a rebirth. It's one of awakening to our spirituality, to kind of, embracing the teachings of the Old Testament as we'd always had them, but taking on this new look, this new reality that says that above all, love thy neighbor. I was watching the Netflix movie The Prom yesterday, and they sing a song about that the message of Jesus, above all, love thy neighbor. This is more important than any other lesson within the Bible. So this is celebrated here in this time of year as we recognize that we are nearing the end of our darkness. We're nearing the end of our ignorance. We are opening up and realizing that the light is returning to our lives. A light which, by the way, never really went away, did it? My wife and daughter are down in Brazil right now, and they're celebrating Christmas too in the tradition of the Northern Hemisphere, but guess what? It's summer down there. You know where they're going to celebrate Christmas and New Year's? On the beach in their bikinis, because they have a totally different environment, but they have the same belief that the new teachings are a teaching of enlightenment. It's a simple physical manifestation of spiritual awakening, the light coming back into our lives. Science of mind informs us that spirit is infinite. And it must be, because everything exists within spirit. We don't put a border around this spirit thing. All of our knowledge, all of our ideas, all matter is within spirit. Knowledge that we're not even aware that we have yet, questions that we haven't thought to ask, already exist within spirit. Don Miguel Ruiz writes in the Fifth Agreement, his follow-up book to the Four Agreements, he writes, the presence of the infinite is everywhere, but if we are in darkness, we don't see what is there. We don't see it because we only see our own knowledge. He's saying here that we're kind of caught up in our own egos, not looking beyond that. We guide our creation, he writes, through that dream. And when our knowledge can't explain what is happening in our life, we feel threatened. And what happens when we feel threatened? We experience fear and we become defensive. And since our egos are not comfortable in fear, we project it as anger. But at what? We have fallen into a trap of our own making. We have empowered the darkness with our own belief. We have all this delightful anger and nothing to use it on. Our anger can either turn inward or we create a scapegoat to appease the masses. A popular plot device in my favorite horsey movies, as my daughter used to call them when I watched westerns, is the innocent hero threatened by mob justice simply because they are the stranger in town. And the locals are quick to assign guilt to the stranger rather than accept that one of their own could be the true culprit. When we self-edit the evidence we examine, we leave important facts concealed, hidden in the shadows of our own denial. We stumble in the darkness, not because we are cut off from the light, but because we refuse to accept the light. Refusing the truth, which is clearly evident in the light, we make up our own truth to fit the facts that we have accepted, even when the edited facts contradict themselves. We simply bend over backward to justify our twisted conclusions. We look right at the truth and say, no, I don't like that truth. So I have these other facts that no one else can see, and I'm going to believe those instead. In my horsey movies, there usually turns out to be one principled character who stands boldly between the innocent and the mob, the one who refuses to accept quick revenge in place of true justice. Ernest Holmes writes in The Science of Mind, light has the power to overcome darkness, not by combating darkness, but by being exactly what it is, light. And of course, light, is the popular metaphor for enlightenment. It's what we often refer to as awakening, as enlightenment. Simply, we're in the light. We can see clearly now. Our principal character in the movie has the courage to say, wait a minute, this is not who we are. We are not fearful people. You, Bob, you're a storekeeper. You're not a murderer. You don't want this to happen. Lanny, you're the blacksmith in town. You're a hardworking man. You're a God-fearing man. You understand that this is not who we are. We don't take people out and hang them from a tree simply because we think they might have done something wrong. We are reasonable, intelligent people who can take the time to look under every rock, examine all the evidence, and let the facts, the true, verifiable facts, lead us to the truth. Holmes writes again, the light of the body is the eye. If therefore thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light. But if thy eye be evil, the whole body shall be full of darkness. He's talking here about the the single eye that sees through a spiritual lens. It sees only spiritual truth. Using a phrase familiar to our new president, this eye enjoys a malarkey filter that discerns misinformation before it percolates into our common consciousness. It doesn't get fogged over by the smoke and fury of emotional upset. It sees only the true facts. Unfortunately, in our time, it seems nearly half the world's population has a dysfunctional malarkey filter. When our spiritual eye is focused on rooting out evil, it only sees evil. One of my teachers used to tell us that so-called perfectionists are anything but perfectionists because all they see is imperfection. When we are conditioned to see the outsider as different or dangerous, we will see abnormality and danger in every outsider. When we step out of our ego and see as Spirit sees, when we allow ourselves to be as if we are created in the image of God, we see the joy and beauty in all things, in all people. We're not threatened by different, but embrace it as simply another expression of God's creation. Holmes writes, "The darkness neither came nor did it go anywhere. It never was a thing of itself, merely a condition, and we have power over conditions. We can nail shut our doors and paint over our windows. We can shut out the light, but it does not go away. Above the thickest cloud in the stormiest sky, the sun is still shining. We have the power to move through any appearance of darkness. We have our belief that the light is always here. We have tools like affirmative prayer and meditation to help us focus our spiritual eye. We have practitioners and ministers. We have enlightened friends, and we have Oprah to help us understand how spirit works within us." Holmes writes, "We wrestle not against outward things, but against inward ideas and beliefs. The power of darkness is the power of false belief and superstition." This week, I attended the funeral of a good family friend taken too early and too quickly for us to accept his loss without some disbelief and questioning of reason. But his ex-wife, with whom he still has a wonderful relationship, the mother of his daughter, spoke at length about his passion for life and how he loved his work, so that he never worked a day in his life. Even though he worked 7 days a week, he loved so much what he was doing that he never felt like he was working. And I began to realize that although we mourn the loss of our friend in this world, the memories he left us with are his legacy. If we can capture just a little piece of his persona in how we face our ongoing challenges, his work is truly done. He did not need to live longer. We did not need to have him in our lives because he continues to influence us. This is how we accept spirit into our lives. whether we practice consciously day in and day out, if we have accepted it deep in our core, it is always there to guide us, to help us through any difficult challenges. My friend's example of seeing all things as good and exciting, or simply as challenges to encourage us to growth, to say, this isn't here to make my life difficult, it's here to make me stronger, it's here to make me more resilient, it's here to make me more loving. This is a manifestation of spiritual principle. The single eye, equipped with a functioning malarkey filter. Never cursing the darkness, but holding high even a single candle to light our way. We can dismiss these false beliefs and superstition. How do we recognize them? If we have to fight to hold a belief, it may require deeper examination. If our belief is based in fear, it may be time to let it go. If our belief causes us anger and separates us from those around us simply because of what they look like, or where they came from, or what they believe, or who they love, that idea is not a spiritual idea. Spirit is based in love. Spirit is all-inclusive. Spirit is infinite. We are all in this game together. Even if aliens were to appear from another planet, they're still part of the same infinite. We may have some misunderstandings at first until our universal translators kick in and we can talk to each other, but the reality is we all cry for the same reasons. We all laugh for the same reasons. We all feel the same feelings. We are all created in this image of God. We are all these spiritual beings. When we dismiss false beliefs and superstitions, we allow ourselves the joy to embrace love. By embracing love, we automatically dismiss ideas of needing to place blame outside of ourselves before cleaning our own house. We don't need scapegoats, and we don't need to hate ourselves either, because we understand the fear we're feeling is a temporary thing. The light is still there. We simply have to allow ourselves to re-embrace it, to reach out and say, let me scrape this paint off the glass in my windows. Let me allow this light back in so that I can see more clearly and find evidence of truth and beauty and love right here. Let me pick up that pile of garbage in the corner and look underneath and see, oh yeah, there's truth and beauty and love right there. I just had it covered up for a while because I was believing something that wasn't really true. That pile of garbage doesn't belong here. I know that. Simply let it go. I do not need to punch holes in opposing arguments if my arguments hold water. If my arguments are based in love, I can listen to opposing views and compare them to my own beliefs. And if my arguments hold water, if they continue to come from a place of love and embracing joy and beauty, then the other arguments are irrelevant. I have to check my ego and allow those who still hold those misbeliefs to find truth in their own time. I can offer them some guidance. I can offer them some differing perspectives, but I can't shove it down their throats. any more than I would accept it from them if they tried. And by the way, truth at the point of a gun isn't truth. It can't work that way. It has to be from within. It has to be something that we realize is true and accept as true without having to enforce it through legislation or force, violence, and fear. I have to ask myself, am I willing to accept new evidence and change my conclusions if that evidence points in a different direction? I must. I cannot be standing in principle if I am not willing to look at new evidence and allow it to change my conclusions if it so warrants. But at the same time, if it doesn't stay within spiritual principle, I have to find the courage to convince myself, at least, if no one else, that yes, my arguments are holding water. This new evidence is interesting, but it doesn't stand in principle. If it does, then I have to re-examine my own conclusion and possibly change. Am I in alignment with Spirit? This is the main question, always. It always comes back to, am I in alignment with Spirit? We know what Spirit is. Spirit is love. It's truth, it's beauty, it's joy, it's creativity. Anything unlike that, we have to re-examine. If it is in Spirit, it is not a matter of passing through darkness, but simply one of accepting the light, allowing that light to flow through us and be the core of our being. I love this time of year again because the sun is shining, but it's not hot. And I let my little dog outside, and you know, she's over 20 years old, so just getting around is a bit of a physical challenge for her, but she loves to go lay out on the pool deck on that concrete that's been soaking up the sun all morning, and she just throws her head back and just looks up into the sky with her eyes closed, and I just know that the joy and love of Spirit is flowing through her, and that all will be good with the universe as it goes through her filter of pure love. Now, as I don't know if you could hear it or not, but my neighbor's starting to weed whack his lawn outside, and my key light just fell off of its tripod, so not for those reasons alone, but mostly because under this line the page is blank. It appears that I'm finished and done for the day. So thank you all so much. Enjoy this day, and I look forward to our conversation that follows. Thank you.